Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sarah Sewell, and I'm the president of the Noble Public Schools Foundation and a parent of children attending Noble Public Schools. Thank you to everyone joining us tonight and those watching online. On behalf of the Noble Public Schools Foundation Board of Directors, we are honored to join our neighbors from the Noble Public Library in hosting this important event for our community. Tonight's primary election forum is our 10th election forum to host, and we continue to remain committed to ensuring every voter in our community has as much information as possible to make informed voting decisions in our local and state elections. The mission of the Noble Public Schools Foundation is to empower educators and enrich student learning by partnering with our community to provide vital education resources while maintaining the highest standards of financial stewardship and transparency. Our vision is that every student will have ample access to the tools and the opportunities they need while in pursuit of their dreams. This past school year, we gave more than $37,000 in classroom grants and $23,000 in scholarships to our graduating seniors. Before we kick off tonight's forum, I would like to share some information on another important upcoming vote. On August 25th, our community will vote on a school bond proposal that has been 5 years in the making and shaped by more than 680 responses from parents, staff, and neighbors like you. Our community is growing at a rapid pace, and our current campuses are bursting at the seams. If passed, this bond will conclude a new 5th and 6th grade school, classroom additions, a new fine arts center, and district-wide safety upgrades. 87% of the bond is dedicated to academics, and every Noble Public School campus will benefit. The best part is the bond is designed to keep your property tax rate at or below its current level with no tax increase to you. Please make plans to vote again on August 25th. And now I am honored to introduce tonight's moderator, Noble Public Schools Board of Education member and House District 45 constituent, Will Broom.
Thank you. So I'm Will Broom. I'm a House District 45. I'm a business owner and resident. And as she said, I'm the District 1 member of the school board. Here's how this is going to work tonight. Basically, here's our candidates. First, we're going to start off with Carolyn Womack-Bielich. She's our Republican challenger from Norman. She's right here behind me. And then our current representative, Menz, Democrat. And the challenger, Evan Shepherd, also Democrat, here from Norman. House District 45 serves the communities of East Norman and the area of Noble Public Schools around Highway 9 and 108. The Democrats are the only candidates that will be on the upcoming June 16th primary ballot. Ms. Womack-Bielich will face the winner of this primary election in the November general election. Here's how the question portion of tonight's event will flow. Each of you will have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves to our audience and online viewers. Following introductions, Ms. Womack-Bielich will exit the stage, and I will begin the questions section of the forum. Questions were submitted by the community members during an open submission period. I will ask a community question to the candidates, and each one will have up to 1 minute to respond accordingly. We will alternate who goes first. Each response will be timed, and you will be given a 15-second warning from the front row. Timekeeper, could you raise your hand? Following the question portion, you will each have up to 1 minute for closing remarks. This is a forum, not a debate. In order to touch on as many topics as possible for tonight, rebuttal time will not be included. We ask that you answer the questions based on your own ideas and merits, that you remain professional to one another during our time together. It is imperative that we keep this forum focused on the issues and refrain from personal attacks. Any negative comments directed to your opponent will be met with a warning. If you're unable to heed the first warning, you will be asked to leave the stage. That being said, let's get started. Sure. Yes. I believe it's not live. It will be available later on this week. Okay. Okay, and we'll start with opening statements. And our first opening statement will be from Ms. Womack-Bielich. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Will, and good evening. So my name is Carolyn Womack-Bielich, and I'm the Republican nominee for House District 45. First, I want to address what's probably going through your minds right now, my name. It's a mouthful, and most people can't pronounce it the first 4 times they try, and trust me, I get it. Try fitting Carolyn Womack-Bielich on a campaign sign. The struggle is real. So if you can't pronounce it, just remember CWB, Carolyn, or as my husband lovingly refers to what he calls my rapper name, C-Dub. So I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I grew up in a parsonage. My dad was a pastor, and if you're not familiar with preacher's kids, we are like military families. We move around a lot. But the difference is that most of those moves for my family was right here in Oklahoma. I was born in Oklahoma City and spent all but 2 years of my childhood attending Oklahoma schools. For me, attending Oklahoma public schools was a wonderful experience because we moved frequently. School provided me a great opportunity for community, friendship, outstanding teachers and mentors, a solid education. I'm a product of Oklahoma public schools, and I'm both grateful and proud of that fact. I also have a husband, JB, who is here, and he also attended and graduated K through 12 from Edmond Public Schools. We have 3 daughters, all of whom live here in Oklahoma and graduated from here, and we're blessed with 3 grandchildren. I won't be able to participate tonight, like Will said, in the question and answer, but I will be able to come back in the fall to the same forum that you'll have later on this fall. I'm looking forward to participating in the general election, and I have a table out in the foyer and would love to meet you individually if you want to stop by and say hi. And thank you to the Noble Board of Education for hosting this forum tonight. And thanks for being here. I look forward to meeting you in the future. Thanks.
All right, next opening statement will be from Representative Menz.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Oh, this is such a beautiful campus to be on. Thanks to Noble Public Schools Foundation and the Noble School Board for having us. It's a really important conversation to host, so I'm really grateful. I am Representative Annie Menz. I represent East Norman in House District 45 at the state capitol, and I have done so since 2022. I have a son at Norman North High School, and I myself graduated from public schools from Putnam City West in West OKC. So I wasn't born in Norman, but I got here as fast as I could. And it's been truly an honor to represent the good people of East Norman in their state government. Some things that you might not read in my bio about me are that while I grew up on the west side of Oklahoma City, I grew up in trailer parks and apartment complexes, oftentimes with 5 or 6 other people living in the home with us. I was raised half the time by my father and stepmother, and the other half by my mother and stepfather. Early on in childhood, I was raised by my grandparents, who were on the verge of retiring at the time, and that was something that was striking in my first election, going around knocking doors, when I spoke to people, because that was the situation that a lot of the people in East Norman were in. We had a lot of mixed status families, a lot of different households, and I felt like I could see not only my experience as an Oklahoman, but as an East Normanite through them. So thanks for having me.
Mr. Shepherd.
My name is Evan Shepherd. Oh. One more time. There we go. My name is Evan Shepherd. I am 22. I was born and raised in Norman. My main focuses in this election are affordability, healthcare, and education. And if I am ever slow in answering these questions today, you'll have to forgive me. I did just get off a 6-hour shift working an Alphabet summer camp up in Norman. So thank you for having me, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
All right, we're going to go straight to the questions. Now, this first question, I'll read a statement to be followed by a question. Mr. Shepherd, you will have the first opportunity, followed by Representative Menz. This year, Oklahoma lawmakers increased the cap on the private school tax credit program, committing $275 million in taxpayer dollars toward private education subsidies, even as many public school districts continue reporting teacher shortages, rapidly rising operational costs, difficulty funding student support services, and growing special education demands. Public schools are all legally required to serve all students, including students with severe disabilities, behavioral challenges, and individualized education plans, or otherwise known as IEPs. Public schools must also comply with audits, accreditation standards, testing requirements, open record laws, and other accountability measures that private schools receiving publicly funded tuition dollars are not required to meet. Do you believe it is fiscally responsible to expand taxpayer-funded private school subsidies without the same level of accountability and required equal access as public schools? Why or why not? What changes, if any, would you propose?
I personally believe that the increased funding for private school vouchers is frankly abhorrent, namely because in a state such as ours where we are already 50th in education and we are already struggling to pay things like we are struggling to pay for free lunches, but I was thinking of when you go to colleges and in high school. Concurrent enrollment, that's right. I remember we've been having trouble with things like concurrent enrollment, free lunches, maintaining teachers, retaining teachers, and everything else. That increasing our funding for what is essentially private schools, which not everyone can afford to go to, not everyone can go to, and places that primarily serve the rich, undermines the access of the public and actively harms public education for average Americans, specifically in Oklahoma. I would propose a change. I would just get rid of them.
That'll be time. Representative Menz.
Thank you for the question. So public dollars should remain public, period. Like if taxpayer dollars are going to subsidize somebody else's family choices, that flies in the face of why we have taxes in the first place and why they're public. It's public money and it needs to stay public. That's all there is to it. It does nothing to overrun school choice if we eliminate the parental choice tax credit. People are still free to send their kid to whatever school they choose. If I choose to send my child to a private school, then I'm going to pay for it myself. I'm not going to expect somebody else to pay for it. I do not. I choose to send my kid to a public school, and that is my choice. That choice still exists, whether or not somebody else is paying for it. Another fine print piece of information that some of my colleagues might not want you to know is that this also expanded access to the PCTC for undocumented families to use taxpayer dollars for these vouchers.
Question number 2. First will be for Representative Menz, followed by Mr. Shepherd. This session, the Oklahoma legislature passed a new literacy reform law requiring that third graders who do not meet required reading benchmarks on state assessments be retained to repeat the third grade. Had this policy been in place last year, Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs has reported that nearly 75% of third graders would have been forced to repeat third grade. Although most Oklahomans would agree something significant needs to be done to address our literacy crisis, Many educators and parents are concerned this new law will unrealistically increase pressure on already understaffed schools by requiring additional teachers, reading specialists, intervention staff, and classroom space that is not available, particularly in districts already struggling with poverty, chronic absenteeism, food insecurity, trauma, and limited early childhood access, all of which are factors closely tied to literacy outcomes. If the state is going to require retention for struggling readers, what specific investments or policy solutions do you support to ensure schools actually have the personnel, resources, and support systems necessary to help those students actually succeed?
So a big part of the conversation around education, everywhere you hear it from, that is missing from the conversation is the fact that hungry kids can't learn. It doesn't matter what we're requiring them to learn or who's requiring them to learn it. If they're hungry, it's not going to happen. Oklahoma is the 6th hungriest state in the nation. We can afford to subsidize free lunch program and expand it here. We just haven't done it. So hungry kids can't learn. I would want to expand the free lunch program first. Also, zoning in on family literacy. So if you're a student, you're getting this homework, you're kind of understanding it, you have to take it home. You want a grown-up's help, but your grown-ups can't help. What are you supposed to do? There are illiterate families from all walks of life in the state of Oklahoma. So being able to support programs that bolster family literacy is another piece of it. And teacher pay raise. We gave one this year, but it wasn't enough. Support staff need pay raises as well. Also expanding Oklahoma's
That's time.
promise. Oh.
Mr. Shepherd?
Just like Annie Menz was touching on, for a lot of it, it does come down to teacher pay raise and teacher retention. In order to maintain these standards set in place by the state legislator, we do in fact need to increase our teacher retention, which does mean an increase in pay. And I would also argue that we need investment in classrooms. And when we have things like these turnpikes, which aren't really helping or boosting our tax base, to prioritize things like earlier, like said with the private school vouchers, it makes it harder to fix the problems that we've already got. It makes the standards that we're setting unrealistic, and really there needs to be a rebalancing of the budget in order to help fix the problems we have in our schools and meet the requirements set. And that means teacher raises, that means more funding for classrooms, because when I was in elementary school, I remember teachers having equipment drives where they would say bring paper, bring pencils. And I think if we can get support there for support staff, for teachers, then we can help solve a lot of the literacy problems here in Oklahoma.
Question number 3. First for Mr. Shepherd, then Representative Menz. Even with recent investments in teacher pay and public school funding, Oklahoma still trails neighboring states in teacher compensation and per pupil funding. Our lawmakers often point to teacher raises as evidence of progress, yet Oklahoma schools continue facing major teacher retention challenges tied to not only to pay, but also to workload, classroom behavior, testing pressures, staffing shortages, and lack of support personnel. Additionally, while lawmakers routinely account for inflation in other areas of budgeting and tax policy, school funding and teacher pay often require repeated political battles just to maintain purchasing power. What do you believe lawmakers may still be getting wrong about why teachers are leaving the profession? And would you support automatically adjusting teacher pay and per pupil funding each year based on inflation so schools are not effectively falling behind over time? Why and why not?
To answer that first part of the question, what I think that state legislators are currently missing is the fact that even with these teacher pay raises, a lot of teachers still have to get second jobs in order to stay afloat. With recent raises in price of living, recent raises in cost of housing, even when a teacher is getting a raise from the state, they often need to take second jobs or have to fund for classroom materials themselves or any other number of monetary problems. And when teachers have to take a second job, when teachers have to, spend more time outside of the classroom in order to prepare for the classroom, it naturally leads to that burnout and that lack of retention. So I do think that really we just need to increase our teacher pay more. And I do think that I would very much support increasing maintaining the purchasing power of schools through an automatic adjustment.
Representative Menz.
So before I was elected, I spent about 7 years as nonpartisan staff in the legislature. 5 years I was running a Senate office for Senator Michael Brooks, and it was during the teacher walkout. And we had hundreds of educators in and out of our office those 2 weeks, hundreds from all over the state. We also had parents, support staff. I could probably count on one hand how many of them asked about their own pay. The rest of them were saying, we need better buildings, we need more pupil funding, per pupil funding, we need smaller class sizes. That one specifically, I heard a lot from parents, and as a public school parent, I can tell you that's something that I would love to see as well. Increasing the Red Bud Fund, we did that this year for schools like this one that are on the formula but don't reap the benefits from gross production tax like the other schools do. And expanding OLAP to the kids of teachers was a nice step in the right direction. I think we need to expand it to support staff, and
That'll be time.
well,
Sorry.
are the questions part of our time too, or do they start whenever we start?
They start when you start. The time starts when you start. All right. We're on question number 4. First will be for Representative Menz, followed by Mr. Shepherd. While our public school districts continue facing measurable challenges like literacy rates, chronic absenteeism, special education staffing, shortages, student behavior issues, and teacher retention, Oklahoma's education debates have increasingly centered around classroom content, library books, curriculum oversight, and parental rights. At the same time, educators across the state increasingly report feeling politically targeted, publicly distrusted, and fearful of backlash over ordinary classroom decisions, contributing to burnout and making teacher recruitment even more difficult. In your opinion, at what point does political activism and divisive rhetoric around public schools begin distracting from the core academic and staffing challenges that are actually impacting student outcomes in Oklahoma classrooms every day?
Well, I loathe to say it, but his name was Ryan Walters, and he did irreparable damage to our education system in the state and to the honorable profession of being an educator. I think a lot of the rhetoric that flies around was not only coined by him, but repeated over and over and over till it became part of mainstream, and it became sort of normalized to blame teachers for more than what they're responsible for, or to put more on their shoulders. I think parent empowerment and communication are key here when we're talking about this, and also, parents feeling empowered to talk to their own kids. I know that sounds like, well, duh, but the more and more I hear these kinds of questions, and the more forums and town halls I attend and have these conversations with folks, there's definitely a disconnect there too. And so it's like I said before, I think I'll probably always go back to making sure everyone's basic needs are being met, and the support staff is strong as well.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd?
I think that political advocacy crosses the line when you get things like Moms for Liberty, when you advocate for book bans, when you target teachers for grading papers like they did at OU while I was enrolled. You run into problems of teacher retention. When you target the teachers directly, it goes too far. The nature of learning is to introduce to new ideas. For a teacher to receive pushback on introducing new ideas is antithetical to the learning process. I think at that point it goes too far.
Question number 5. First it will be from Mr. Shepherd, followed by Representative Menz. This legislative session, Oklahoma leaders supported efforts to reduce property taxes without clearly identifying how local communities would replace that lost revenue. At the same time, many Oklahomans are struggling with rising insurance costs, housing prices, and overall cost of living, making home ownership increasingly difficult for working families. Currently, Oklahoma's property taxes remain one of the primary funding sources for our local schools, roads, fire departments, law enforcement, libraries, and ambulance services. If property tax revenues are slowed or eliminated, what specific local government services do you believe should receive less funding? What funding source should replace the lost revenue? And what evidence leads you to believe that funding approach will leave communities better off?
While I'm loath to talk about budget cuts in an era where everything's already so skinny, I'd say that for me, I'd probably cut law enforcement and maintain education, because there is a correlation between an educated populace and a populace that engages in crime. And so for me, attacking the root of things like criminal activity, education, avenues for future advancement, careers, standard of living, I think in the long term, I would probably take the cut to law enforcement, although, again, I would hope that we would not lose that funding.
Representative Menz?
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure. Do you want just the last portion, or you want the whole statement too? Okay. If property tax revenues are slowed or eliminated, what specific local government services do you believe should receive less funding? What funding source should replace the lost revenue? And what evidence leads you to believe that funding approach will leave communities better off?
Thank you. So I feel like, this was a really big conversation for a couple weeks during session, and it was really striking to me to see how it was covered in the media and how people were receiving it. Folks that were saying, let's eliminate the property tax, I don't think that they were saying, let's do it so we can cut all these services, or let's defund a bunch of stuff because I don't want to pay taxes. I think that there was a little bit more behind it than that for them. However, ad valorem tax is the oldest and most reliable revenue source for the state of Oklahoma. We can't just go in. It's rather lazy to look at something and say, well, let's just cut that, and then boom, solves all their problems. It does not. I would not cut any local programs. There are actually ways that have been introduced in the House and the Senate. There are ways to bring in more revenue streams for things like public safety that have not progressed through the process. So there are ways for us to, I'm not saying we're going to make a ton of money, but there are ways for us to fill gaps.
Mr. Shepherd?
I already answered.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you
It's
did.
all right, yeah.
All right, question number 6. First, we'll start with Representative Menz, and they'll be followed by Mr. Shepherd. The proposed turnpike expansion through Norman, Noble, and Newcastle areas has deeply divided many communities in this region. Supporters argue that the project is necessary to address long-term growth, congestion, and infrastructure needs, while opponents raise serious concerns about eminent domain, transparency, private property rights, and the impact on families who could lose homes, farmland, or generational property. At the same time, many Oklahoma leaders strongly advocate for limited government and protection of private property rights, and yet the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority maintains broad eminent domain powers for projects deemed to serve as a public purpose. Where do you draw the line between public necessity and government overreach in using eminent domain for major infrastructure projects?
Well, that's an interesting way to phrase that question. I've tried to define what is and isn't public use. I as it pertains to eminent domain takings and was rebuffed by my colleagues who were pressured by the lobbyists who work for the Turnpike Authority and those entities. It is absolutely unnecessary. Those talking points, I know where they come from. It's going to alleviate traffic on 35. I know what we've all been told. Okay, why does it have to be a turnpike, though? Why can't it just be a highway, and why can't it go someplace else? It has to be a turnpike because the Turnpike Authority practices what is called cross-pledging. So they function as a network so that they take out all this debt and they have to keep building new turnpikes to pay it off. I'm sorry, servicing your debt is not a good enough reason to take somebody else's property. They do not receive funding from the state of Oklahoma, so they're not a state agency. So they get to operate in different ways than a state agency would operate. So oversight is another thing I would want to do more.
Mr. Shepherd?
You can draw the line at the turnpike. This turnpike will bring no economic value to Norman. It will bring no economic value across anywhere. It will not fix the traffic on I-35, and the uses of eminent domain to take people's houses in order to build it is horrible. In a time when it's already expensive to find housing, why are we making it more expensive by getting rid of houses?
Question number 7. First, it will be from Mr. Shepherd, followed by Representative Menz. In 2020, Oklahoma voters approved Medicaid expansion through State Question 802, placing it in the state constitution. This year, lawmakers proposed measures that could allow future legislative changes to the program if federal funding levels shift. Supporters of Medicaid expansion argue it improves healthcare access, reduces uncompensated care costs, and helps stabilize hospitals, while critics raise concerns about long-term fiscal sustainability and future taxpayer obligations if federal matching rates decline. If financial conditions change, how much authority should lawmakers have to alter Oklahoma's voter-approved Medicaid expansion, and what specific fiscal benchmarks would justify overriding the will of the voters?
I think that whatever is needed to make sure that Oklahoma is healthy is the amount of money we should be able to put into it. I do think we should have the ability to change it, and I know that's already squeezing a tight budget tighter. But in a world where, not every job has health care, where health care gets taken out of your pay, where health care is expensive if you're not on insurance, having these social safety nets is important to ensure that people that are in poverty aren't stuck there for the rest of their lives or for generations. And I do believe that we should have the ability to expand it.
There are no benchmarks that can be met that would justify overturning the will of the people. That's it. I know that it's expensive, especially with what's being handed down at the federal level. Next year's fiscal year for Oklahoma is going to be a crunch. Next session, our budget is going to look bad. They're already talking about cuts to services. It's going to be bad. We have in Oklahoma a democratic process. We have in America a democratic republic. So when people have spoken about this thing that they want, and us, for us to turn around and try to devise ways to pull the rug out from under them isn't just egregious, it's erasing hope and, unraveling the democracy that got us elected ourselves. I think when it comes to hefty policy like this and costs to the state, there are nips and tucks we can make other places. We need to buckle down and have those hard conversations with ourselves.
That'll be time. Mr. Shepherd, do you have a question?
I was just double checking that the question was referring to the use of changing it to expand the program, correct? Not to minimize it?
Yes, it just changes in general. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
The legislative proposal?
For Medicaid? To be specific, the question is basically, do we change what we put into state law with State Question 802?
And I said yes for the purpose of expansion, and you said no.
If
for
the
stop
government
minimization.
changes
Okay.
funding levels, do we change
Yeah, yeah.
what the intention of 802
I'll
was,
try
or
to
the
expand
spirit
it.
of the?
I'll try to expand it. All right.
Question 8. First for Representative Menz, followed by Mr. Shepherd. Community involvement and accessibility are important expectations for Noble residents. During a time when political division and distrust remain high across our state and nation, many of our residents want elected officials who are visible, approachable, willing to listen, and able to work constructively with people of differing viewpoints. If elected, what specific steps would you take to maintain a consistent presence in Noble and build relationships across the entire community, including business owners, educators, local organizations, and constituents of differing political perspectives?
Thank you. This is a great question because I'm always looking for ways to keep in touch with my constituents. I've been already out knocking doors this year for a couple months now. I did a little during session as well. I've done it in years that aren't election years just to check in. I do not believe I could do this job without talking directly to people and showing up where they are. The bills that I file, I think 98% of them are direct constituent request bills. The other one was veterans organization. But it's people have emailed me or told me about an idea they had. I've been stopped in the grocery line. I want to create a community advisory council for House District 45 going forward. I've tried doing op-eds, I've tried to do newsletters and all sorts of things, try to stay engaged on social media, but it doesn't feel like enough to me. I would love to have a community advisory council to meet regularly and just go over major things that their communities are impacted by individually.
That'll be time. Mr. Shepherd?
On the bottom of my website, it's got my personal cell phone number. If you wanna test it, you can. I'm available at any time. Call me whenever you want. If you want to just hang out, that's fine too. If you've got questions or problems, call me.
Question number 9. First for Mr. Shepherd, then by Representative Menz. Oklahoma has one of the highest incarceration rates in the United States, while consistently ranking near the bottom nationally in many educational outcomes. Recent concerns surrounding conditions, staffing shortages, violence, and transparency at the Central Oklahoma Juvenile Center in Tecumseh have intensified broader questions about how the state approaches struggling youth. At what point should Oklahoma stop treating poor educational outcomes and high incarceration rates as separate problems? And what should lawmakers be investing in for our children before the state ends up paying to incarcerate them?
That's a wonderful question, and I think I touched on that a little bit already in the budget cut section about how I do believe that there's already a clear correlation there, and how it's better to invest in our children's youth than it is to invest in reactionary measures. So I think that there's already a strong correlation. I do think that we should put more emphasis on education in our children's futures.
Representative Menz?
So I'm going to touch back on family literacy programs, and a little bit I didn't get to talk to you earlier about the literacy was the early intervention. So something that I believe correlates here is intervening as early as possible in a person's life, and providing hope and resources, making sure that all of those resources are funded and available, including things like free lunches and our SNAP program and family literacy programs. So childcare is another really big workforce infrastructure thing, but also I think sometimes for some kids, that's the only part of their day that they're going to get to play outside or get a hot meal or have safety to feel safe enough to take a nap. So additionally, making sure that resources are available early on is key.
Okay, now our question 10. If you are the winner of the June 16th Democratic primary, do you agree to return in the fall to participate in our final election forum with Ms. Womack-Bielich? Yes or no? If no, can you explain your reasoning?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it easy.
Why wouldn't I?
We're going to ask one last question. What separates you from your opponent, and why should Democrat voters choose you on June 16th? First for Mr. Shepherd, followed by Representative Menz.
In the process of this forum, I've just from the answers given, I think it's safe to say that I've taken a more optimistic approach to how I want to affect policy here in Norman and here in Noble and for the rest of Oklahoma. And I just want to say that it is my hopeful goal to get as much as I can done for you, and not try to compromise where I can't, and compromise where I can. June 16th. I hope you'll vote for me. If you don't, at least vote for the pay raise.
The minimum wage state question.
Yeah.
Well, I have been involved in the political process since before I was old enough to vote. Nobody in my family really cares about politics or government or anything like that. It was just me and my curiosity, and I got involved with a local campaign when I was 17 and have been knocking doors since high school. I'm 38 now. I like to approach things. I'm an incrementalist. I like to have hard conversations with people that I don't always disagree with on things. And I can tell you that the most uncomfortable conversations that I've had in the state capitol building have also been some of the most productive. I have an understanding of the way that the building works as I've worked there, and I am still so hopeful and so energetic and ready to go back and face the challenges head on, knowing where they're coming from and how to handle them. So I really, really, really would appreciate being sent back to defend our district and our Norman values.
All right. We'll start with closing statements. You'll each have 1 minute. Mr. Shepherd, we'll start with you.
In regards to my optimism, there's always direct democracy here in Oklahoma. Anything I can try to put into a bill automatically drops the number of signatures down from 10% to 7%. So even if it's a long shot, I will give it a shot. That's all.
Representative Menz.
Thank you again for inviting me here. This has been great. Good to connect with everyone. I'm available to meet up one-on-one for coffee. I love doing that. I'm available to come to any neighborhood association meetings or anything like that. Just please reach out. I will make sure everybody here has my contact info before I leave, in case you don't have time to go surfing the web looking for me. But I again am Annie Menz, State Representative for House District 45. I am deeply honored and proud to represent all of the people of East Norman as their state representative and their voice. This is something that I've wanted to do since 7th grade, so I'm deeply proud to be able to keep doing it. So thank you.
Thank you to all our candidates for House District 45. Your willingness to serve our communities and our state is admirable, and we appreciate your leadership. Thank you to all of our citizens for attending tonight. Participation in informed voting is one of our most important civic responsibilities. Tonight's forum was recorded and will be available for online viewing in a few days. Please watch the Noble Public Schools Facebook page for that shareable link to be posted by Wednesday. Make plans now to go vote in your regular polling location on Tuesday, June 16th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can also vote early from 8 to 6 on Thursday, June 11th, Friday, June 12th, and from 8 to 2 on Saturday, June 13th at the following House District 20 locations. Noble Library, Sooner Mall, and the Cleveland County Fairgrounds. House District 45 candidates will now be available in the foyer for you to visit with one-on-one and share campaign materials. And I want to thank you. A lot of those questions tonight, those are questions that really affect our schools here locally. Those are questions we ask at every school board meeting as we go through. There's a lot of question marks coming up. So appreciate you coming and taking the time for that. And good night, everyone. Thank you.